Good evening. Welcome to this evening's edition of the Vision Route video blog. I am Richard Urban reporting to you from historic Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Tonight's installment is the Fraudulent Family Federation Leaders, my testimony. Let's start with a reading from the Bible, from Mark chapter 12. Jesus then began to speak to them in parables. A man planted a vineyard. He put a wall around it, dug a pit for the winepress, and built a watchtower. Then he rented the vineyard to some farmers and moved to another place. At harvest time, he sent a servant to the tenants to collect from them some of the fruit of the vineyard. But they seized him, beat him, and sent him away empty-handed. Then he sent another servant to them. They struck this man on the head and treated him shamefully. He sent still another, and that one they killed. He sent many others. Some of them they beat, others they killed. Also Nehemiah chapter 1. Remember the instruction you gave your servant Moses, saying, If you are unfaithful, I will scatter you among the nations. But if you return to me and obey my commands, then even if your exiled people are at the farthest horizon, I will gather them from there and bring them to the place I have chosen as a dwelling for my name. Well, tonight I'd like to do something a little bit different. I'd like to actually give a testimony about my experience in the Family Federation. I joined the Family Federation, the Unification movement as it was known then, over 40 years ago. And I'd like to give the experience of the recent experience with some of my experiences in the last, say, 15 years, since, say, 2000. So we know that Mrs. Moon, Hak Jahan, is now no longer a disciple of Reverend Sung Myung Moon, her former husband. So basically, she's gone off on her own tangent, and we're going to deal more with that in a video very soon. But I'd like to just give a personal testimony. So let's talk about some of the Family Federation leaders and think about, how did this great heresy happen? Did it just suddenly occur that, leaders are not following what Reverend Moon said? They're not following God. They're not following Jesus Christ. They're not following the second coming of Christ? I don't think so. So I've always been one for, working on the ground. I've never been in a church leadership position, any paid or non-paid official position. But I've always been very active in doing church work, such as home church, fundraising, and, other missionary activities. Well, so I started an organization, two organizations. One of them is Urban Grocery, and that was the foundation for that was founded by Reverend Sung Myung Moon in 1987, and I was one of the first people to work with that company, Happy Mind Shop at Home Service. And this was a company for home grocery delivery in Washington, D.C. that was way ahead of the curve, one of the very first companies doing that, before Peapod, and other companies. Well, and eventually when that closed down, then I continued to do that business and develop my own software system, which we're still doing at urbangrocery.net. So, right. So why did I mention that? Well, I presented this work and the other work I started, which is a related nonprofit called Urban Life Training. And that was founded in 2002 to help youth to succeed by abstaining from sex before marriage and abstaining from drugs and alcohol, building towards successful family formation. So these two works are my own initiatives, and they're still going on. Well, so I met, some time ago in D.C. with the then district leader, Dr. Chung Shik Young. So I thought, well, great, he's going to be so excited, or at least appreciative, or at least supportive of these efforts I'm doing, because after all, Father founded the Happy Mind Shop at Home Service, and this was after it closed in 1994. So this was sometime after that. And, so I met with him to talk about that. This was probably actually in around 2000-ish. So did he say, oh, great, Richard, I'll help spread the word about the good work you're doing, continuing Father's legacy? No, he didn't care about Urban Grocery. Zero interest. Well, that's interesting. Father Moon said this would be one of his greatest projects. Okay. So what did Dr. Young think about the Urban Life Training Program, and as for that matter, other church leaders? Well, not much. He didn't seem to have much interest in promoting that, or not promoting it. I wasn't asking him actually to promote it. You would think they'd be interested, and maybe I should, you know, give some seminars or teach or something like that. Nope, no interest, zero. Then at another meeting with myself and Richard Panzer, this was in about, I think, 2002. Richard was doing the absence work with free teens, and I was doing the urban life training. So we met again with Dr. Chung Shik Yang. I think then also he was a district leader. He might have been the continental director at that time. But in any case, at least a district leader in D.C. And he was also running his own HIV/AIDS or promoting this organization that he founded, Washington AIDS Foundation. Okay, so then we met with Dr. Young, and he said, well, Richard, I think there were a couple other people at the meeting too. I don't remember exactly, but I know Richard Panzer's there. We met in Washington, D.C. at Upshur House. He said, well, we'll graciously, he didn't say exactly like that, but he said, we'll graciously allow you to continue your program. I thought, what the heck? What is he talking about? It's my program, So why were we meeting with them? Well, generally, if you cooperate together with people with similar interests, you're supposed to further God's work. And what is more core to the work of True Father Reverend Sun Myung Moon than teaching about sexual purity, sex within marriage that is good sex, absolutely good sex, and so on? Nothing. So did he have interest in, collaborating to further these great works? No, none. Basically he seemed to be more interested in control, like, oh, okay, we'll let you continue your work. We won't take it over. Oh, okay. And Dr. Panzer has given his own testimony how he had a similar experience earlier in the church where church leaders wanted to take over his organization. Okay, great. So that's how that organization works. So why is this relevant to the current situation with the Han Mother? Well, it's relevant because we see a complete dropping of the church's mission. What has Reverend Sun Myung Moon talked about since 1996 when he gave the landmark speech in Search the Origin Universe? The sexual organs, the absolute holiness of it, sexual purity, abstinence. So why in the new so-called new Chun Sung Gyung, which is a scripture, was a scripture of the unification movement until Mother Moon obliterated it, basically, and came out with her own book of the same name, why is it that the references to absolute good sex are now dropped from around 600 to less than 100? And only one reference to sexual organs when there were 600 in the original book, and 80 or so strange references to reproductive organs. What the heck is that? Your ovaries? Father Moon was talking about the penis and vagina. Hello? So this is a complete shift in focus. And then recently, like last Sunday, Pastor Hyung Jin Moon, the current leader of the movement, the Unification Sanctuary and the Unification Movement, was explaining that, since Miss Hak Jahan has been leading the movement since her husband's former husband's death, then they don't even do Hundake. Well, even I'm doing Hundake every morning and spreading it. What is more central? What did Reverend Sun Myung Moon say day and night to do? He said, always study the word day and night. And there's not even a tradition of study of the word every morning. What the heck? Why not? Well, she's making her own words up, her own scriptures up. Making herself to be God, making herself to be the second coming. This is utter heresy. It's nonsense. No one can take this seriously. And if they do, they're not thinking. How could anyone accept that? So I'm going to address that more in near future video. But I just wanted to give that personal testimony. And how did it go as I went further since 2002 when I promoted my work at the Family for Asian Church? Well, let's see. When I had workshops, I had to stand outside the church in D.C. on the sidewalk because I couldn't get permission to promote my workshops about, sexual purity. That's kind of strange. And then later, when I tried to introduce at least half a dozen times the work of urban life training to the American Clergy Leadership Conference, there was never any interest. Somehow it could never be introduced. Or to the women's race, I never could introduce it. No interest. No, I'm not interested. It wasn't about money. I wasn't even asked for any money. In fact, I'd set up a series of presentations at the DC church, and they were just tossed out the window after one presentation. So much for church focus on the work of Father Moon. Already the church had been veering off, Especially, I would say, since 2000. So if you can't see that and think everything's fine, well, I can sell you the London Bridge, I guess. In any case, please wake up, look into the work that's doing. I'd also like to invite you to, of course, see the videos, Sermon of the Pastor Young Jin Moon, and also subscribe to the Daily Inspiration. The information is, you can sign up at visionroot.org. That is the words of Reverend Sun Myung Moon in the Bible, and also words of Reverend Sun Myung Moon. So you can keep the tradition Reverend Sun Myung Moon taught us, and the tradition of Jesus and the second coming of Jesus. And then you'll know absolutely when you do that, that what is going on is a complete absolute heresy and is totally unacceptable. So I thank you for watching tonight. Please like this video, comment below, and God bless and have a good evening. Until next time, this is Richard Urban reporting from historic Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. Good night.